Hello everybody, this is Havoc and welcome to the Lizardmen Army unit roster that Creative Assembly put up post Facebook livestream. If you didn't catch the livestream, go on their Facebook page. It was a really good livestream. They went through all of the units that are going to be present thus far, you know, as a development in process kind of style. Went through all the units, kind of their abilities, the things you'll see with them, how you could really use them, as well as other things like that. So let's get right on into it. What I really enjoy about the Lizardmen, and one thing that it's going to be mentioned kind of over and over again, is their ability to go berserk, since these are, I won't say primitive because they're not built as a primitive race, but they are very animalistic, they're very beast-like, and so they will have the potential to go berserk, which isn't always a good thing. So that'll be kind of factored into all of the different things. So let's go ahead and just read the intro, and then I'll go through the unit rosters and explain and try and put pictures up, things like that. So the Lizardmen, millennia ago, besieged by a chaos invasion, a conclave of high elf mages forged a vast arcane vortex. Its purpose was to draw the winds of magic from the world as a sinkhole drains an ocean and blast the demonic hordes back to the realm of chaos. Now the great vortex falters and the world again stands at the brink of ruin. Powerful forces move to heal the maelstrom and avert catastrophe, yet others seek to harness its terrible energies for their own bitter purpose. The race is on, and the very fate of the world will lie in the hands of the victor. Atop his pelican throne, the SLAAN mage priest MAZDAMUNDI directs his Lizardmen war hosts as they surge northward from Lustria. He is intent on preventing cataclysm, though the old methods of the old ones must prevail. Legendary Lords player choosing the Lizardmen will be able to select from the following Legendary Lords, which will lead their grand campaign. MAZDAMUNDI, he is the oldest and most powerful of the living SLAAN mage priests. With a matchless mind unfathomable to others, MAZDAMUNDI is obstinate in his ways and will not be deterred from that upon which he has decided. Although it took many interruptions to his thoughtful contemplations, at last the great MAZDAMUNDI has stirred himself, shaking off the lethargy that has afflicted so many of his kind. When riled, the Lord of the Solar City will levitate his pelican throne atop the largest STEGADON that can be found. The current beast, a colossal specimen named Locke, has served MAZDAMUNDI for almost 500 years. Once aloft on his mount, MAZDAMUNDI will march out at the head of his armies of HForHavoc. With a flick of his wrist, MAZDAMUNDI has smashed cities and doomed armies. His great purpose does not allow for mercy. So that's really cool. MAZDAMUNDI is one of the, in the live stream they said he is one of the, if not the best spellcaster in the entire Warhammer lore, at least in terms of the old world kind of style. So like I said, with a flick of his wrist, he has smashed cities and doomed armies. So it'll be interesting to see his abilities, the things he can do. Obviously, he is a very large toad-like creature. And he will not be able to move very quickly, but he will apparently have two mounts, and we'll get to that in a minute. But MAZDAMUNDI will be a really cool, unique character. I hope he's like pretty large because he looks humongous. So I kind of hope that when you see him on the battlefield, he actually will be, and it'll just be really cool to see that levitating platform that he'll be on as well. KROX-GAR, he is an ancient SAURUS, the last remaining warrior from the now ruined temple city of Zodal. It was none other than the great loader MAZDAMUNDI, that, I'm assuming Lord, that summoned KROX-GAR to his temple city, choosing him to lead the great SAURUS armies that remained. Since that day, MAZDAMUNDI has assigned KROX-GAR the sacred task of exterminating those creatures not part of the old one's great plan. Over his long existence, KROX-GAR has fought many wars, leading the armies of HForHavoc or joining other hosts to aid them in battle. There is no continent upon which KROX-GAR and Grimlock have not fought, but for the last defenders of Zodal, the battle is not yet over. So KROX-GAR is obviously going to be your melee style lord. He has a giant carnosaur, I believe, that he is able to mount called Grimlock. And as it says, he has been chosen to lead the armies in the place of MAZDAMUNDI. He will be great. He will be ferocious. You saw him in the trailer at the very end on top of his mount Grimlock. And so yeah, it'll be cool to see what he is able to do. It'll be cool to see if he able to go into melee without a mount. I guess, yeah, we'll see that in just a little bit. But yeah, so those are your two main legendary lords. Both are really awesome. They look great in the trailers. It'll be exciting to see them on the battlefield. We're gonna get into the roster now, and it's a pretty extensive one, I will say. I'm really excited for this though, because there's a lot of different dinos in this army, and it's really cool and really excited to see the thought process behind those as well. So let's go ahead and get right onto it. Your Castle Lord, Lord MAZDAMUNDI, he has mounts, he has a platform, and his lock, which is the ancient STEGADON. I just mentioned him, probably the best, if not the second best spellcaster in the entire game. Should have some really good unique abilities. We don't see any of those abilities on in this article, but I'm sure we'll get to see that later on. Melee units, or a melee lord, excuse me. We have kroq-gar. He has a mount, so he's on foot, so we will see him on foot at first. Much like all of the other legendary lords that we've seen in Warhammer 1, he'll start on foot, he'll level up, he'll get to a cold one, then he'll get to a horned one, and then eventually he'll get to Grimlock, his Carnosaur, much like Karl Franz gets his final mount. Other lords, we have a Castle Lord, we have a SLAAN Mage Priest. So as mentioned, Lord MAZDAMUNDI is a SLAAN Mage Priest. He is just the top SLAAN Mage Priest. So there are other ones left. I don't think there's a whole lot of them left in the world of Warhammer at this point in time. A lot of them have died or been so lethargic they can't awake in order to do anything. But obviously they are the toad kind of race, so their mounts are as a platform only. So that's interesting, as they can't even get any other kind of STEGADON. They can literally just use those hovering platforms. Another melee lord, we have a SAURUS Old Blood. He has a mount of a foot, cold one, and a Carnosaur. So these Sauruses, they're not like Velociraptors, I don't think. They're kind of just beefier stock, but they are kind of more that upright, kind of standing dinosaur, not necessarily like Velociraptors or Carnosaurs are. So it'll be really good to see. I'm assuming they didn't say any weapons. I wish they kind of would have done weapons too, but regardless, they have 3, whether they don't get Grimlock obviously, but they will still get a foot. They'll be on foot, there'll be a cold one mount, and then a Carnosaur mount. We also have a melee hero, a SAURUS Scar Veteran. He will be the same mounts, foot, cold one, and a Carnosaur. It'll be really, I'm just excited for this, because bringing in that aspect of going rogue, going berserk a little bit, losing themselves, I wonder if these dinosaurs, the mounts themselves, will go rogue, and you'll kind of lose control of your melee lords or your melee heroes in the battle, or any of those, because all of the Lizardmen pretty much have a point at which they would go completely berserk and go after them. So it'll be cool to see how that works. So the missile hero, we have the SKINK Chief. His mounts are foot, TERRADON, STEGADON, and ancient STEGADON. The TERRADON is obviously what you saw flying in the latest trailer. So missile hero, I'm assuming spears kind of the thing. I don't really know if there are any like bowmen for these guys. I haven't seen them in the trailer since they're kind of that old native style. I think just they mentioned blow darts in the Facebook Live thing, so I'm assuming there's blow darts and javelin, which really kind of sucks because they're not limited per se, but they are not as limited as like the vampire counts, because they don't have really any good ranged units. But they'll definitely be up close and personal, hiding in the forest, laying ambush and things like that, because you're not going to really get a good amount of long range ranged combat in with them, basically. So it's interesting. Foot, TERRADON, a STEGADON, and an ancient STEGADON. That's just really, it's weird that those are the mounts, but I guess it works. And same thing for a caster hero. The SKINK Priest is your caster hero, and he has a foot, TERRADON, STEGADON, and ancient STEGADON. Now the STEGADONs are obviously going to be beefier. They're going to be able to handle more hits. But at the same time, I would rather choose a TERRADON for a missile hero or a caster hero, because that's a flying unit, and you're going to be able to get around the battlefield more. I feel like that might just be better, because any time that I played a caster hero, I've always tried to get a flying mount, because you're either able to hover over yourself, over your own units, and help them out that way, and then get across the battlefield, or you're heading towards the army, letting off a hit and heading back. You can't really do that with a STEGADON. I guess it just depends on your play style. So those are your main heroes and lords. Really, really cool. Again, all of them will have a varying degree of going berserk, so it'll be really cool to see how that works. Now we're getting into the base stuff. For melee infantry, we have skink cohorts with shields. We have SAURUS warriors with shields, SAURUS spears with shields, temple guard, skink cohort with javelins, skink skirmish, oh, that's missile, excuse me, Sorry. So skinks, as they mentioned, all skinks will have a poison attack, which is really good in terms of fighting. They aren't necessarily the best in battle, they're not the biggest units, but since all of them will have a poison attack, that would be really, really good. It will help you gain an advantage with less superior troops, since all of them will have that damage soaking ability. A SAURUS warrior is, as I mentioned, the legendary lord. He is a SAURUS, so they're just beefier units. The skinks are those little weird little lizards that are seen crawling around, and so the SAURUS are just beefier units of those. So we have SAURUS warriors, and we have SAURUS warriors with shields. We also have SAURUS spears with shields. So it's basically the same thing as like the Empire. You have your swordsmen with shields, spearmen with shields, and same kind of deal. The temple guards, these guys are really, really big units. So these guys, from the live stream, he said they've literally been kind of just standing there guarding temples perfectly still for years and years and years. And so as a result, the temple guards, they will be much bigger units. I won't necessarily say, I don't think they're a monster unit per se, but they will, since they are kind of calm, since they have learned to sit still for so long, they are going to be least likely to go berserk, to go crazy, because they kind of have that solace inside of them that can just hold it together. And so all of these melee infantry units, not a whole lot of actual melee units. There's not. He mentioned something about temple guards having temple guards with shields, and he mentioned something about temple guards having actual halberdiers. But they're so big, the temple guards are, that halberdiers are like regular spears for any other unit. So I'd really like to see how the temple guard look. Maybe they'll release something soon. Moving on to missile infantry, we really only have 3 units. So we have skink cohorts with javelins, skink skirmishers with blowpipes, and then chameleon skinks. Now I want to touch on chameleon skinks a little more, because they're kind of the offshoot of skinks. Like they're kind of like a subspecies per se, and from what I've heard, they're actually going to be really, really good at stealth, which makes sense. They're chameleons, so I imagine there will be some sort of stealth, either stealth ability to kind of go invisible, or they'll just be like some of the units were in Total War Attila. They'll just have the ability to be super stealthy no matter the terrain and be able to lay some pretty good ambushes. So it doesn't say what these guys have. I imagine it's either javelins or blowpipes, and as I mentioned, all skinks will have a poison ability. So the missile infantry, the skink cohort with the javelins, gonna have poison javelins. Same thing with the missile infantry, skink skirmishers with blowpipes, they're gonna have blowpipes. Now in the live stream, he mentioned that the skink skirmishers with blowpipes have poisonous dead frogs all over their bodies. So what they'll do is they'll dip a dart, a blowpipe dart, into the poisonous frog and then shoot it. I really, really hope that this is an animation inside of the game, because if it is, it will look really, really good, really, really cool. He didn't say, I don't remember if he said that it would be in the game, but he just mentioned that that's kind of how they do it. So it'll be cool to see if they do that. On to your only melee monstrous infantry unit, KROXIGORS. Now KROXIGORS, if I remember correctly, KROXIGORS are kind of the stupid creature of the game. Now, of course, they're not going to be called stupid, but basically they are the labor force. They get things done. They are monstrous. They are super just ripped and torn and full of muscle and full of rage, but they're not that bright. So it'll be cool to see. I think they actually will have their weapons chained to them. At least I think that's what it is over in the tabletop, and so they mentioned that this would probably be an aspect because they don't want to risk them dropping their weapon, whether it's a club or whether it's a big spear. So these KROXIGORS, they will go into battle, but they will be likely to go rage crazy on you, and in that case you want to stand back. But yeah, they're kind of the slow in terms of brain power. Not the brightest units, but they are melee monstrous infantry, so you'll want to keep them on the battlefield. Just how monstrous they are, I mean, they're pretty significantly bigger than Sauruses. Sauruses are bigger than skinks, you kind of get the idea there. We're going to move on to cavalry. There are 4 types of melee cavalry in this game. There are feral cold ones, cold one riders, cold one spear riders, and horned ones. Now, feral cold ones are one of the units that Creative Assembly has made specifically for the game. So the cold ones are basically They're not velociraptors, but they're kind of a saurus. I don't really know what to call them exactly, but they are, and it's funny because they were like, well, are they called cavalry? Because not a lot of people ride them, and they're not always ridden. They're only on 2 feet, not 4 feet. But the feral cold ones are just like cold one cav, but they are just newly caught, not trained. They're a little more animalistic, which means they're going to go a little bit crazy. And when they said in the live stream is when they go berserk, I don't think it's necessarily like it was in the past that they'll just tear up anything around them. When they get raged and when they get angry, they just go straight for the enemy no matter what. So one thing with the melee cav that they mentioned is, depending on what kind of melee cav you use, you need to be careful on how you want to flank, and flanking will be hard with the Lizardmen, because if they get pissed off, they're just going to head straight. They're just going to head straight for the enemy no matter what. So it'll be a good idea. I'm just going to throw this out there as a military tactic with the Lizardmen. If you want to employ a lot of cav, you want to keep them away from the battle, very much far away from the battle. And then once you're ready to flank them, just send them straight in. Once they get enraged, they'll go in faster and harder, and then boom, there you got it. Another unit of melee cav, Cold One Riders. These are the guys that will have riders on top of them, whether they're sauruses or skinks, I don't quite remember. And then Cold One Spear Riders is simply the spear variant of the Cold One Riders. The Horde ones are unique units. Every once in a while in a spawn of cold ones, you'll get these horned ones. They're a little bit faster, a little bit more ferocious. I don't know, I mean, the Horde ones, they're a different unit than the regular melee cav. So I think it'll just be a whole pack of horned ones, but I almost want to say there's going to be a limit to them because they are not a common unit. So the horned ones are definitely rare. Every batch of 100, there's like one horned one. You know, every batch of cold ones, there's a horned one. So it'll be, I don't know how they'll handle that. Whether there'll be not as many horned ones in a unit pack versus a pack of cold ones, you know. I don't know how they're going to handle that, but it would be really cool to see. Flying Missile Cav, we have Pterodon Riders and then Pterodon Riders with Fire Leech Bolas. You saw both of them in the trailer. The Pterodon Riders are obviously what flew around the whole time, and the Fire Leech Bolas, as I found out, they're leeches, literally leeches, that are deployed, and when they get pissed off, they blow up. So the idea is that a Pterodon Rider would come in and they would swirl the Fire Leech around, and then they would throw it at the enemy. That swirling around gets the leech pissed off, and then it explodes. And then that stone that you saw, which I didn't know, I thought that was kind of the explosive device, is actually just a really heavy stone. And much like the dwarven units, the gyrocopters drop their bombs, the same thing will happen, except for this doesn't explode, it just drops down on the infantry, but anyone who gets hit by that stone is dead. So has its advantages and disadvantages. Now the Pterodon Riders, I think they will be standard javelins. I don't know that there's variants. They don't say any variants here, and in the tabletop there's only javelin throwers with the Pterodon Riders, so I think that's where it's going to be. We're going to get down into melee monsters. We have feral Bastiladons, feral Stegadons, and feral Carnosaurs. Now, all of these melee monsters are feral, which means they are made by Creative Assembly. I don't think there's any technically feral units in the tabletop. I don't remember. I didn't see any, and I could have just been looking wrong. But these creatures are obviously going to be your big melee monster units, but since they are feral, same thing. You're going to have to use them a little differently if you want them to survive. Now they mentioned something about being able to, if all these units may have the revive ability, they may regen health. I can't remember exactly what that was about, but assuming that's the case, the way they said to use them was you send them into battle, you let them tear up some stuff before they get pissed off and enraged, you pull them out, you let them regenerate. Once the regeneration is out, you just put them right back in and you let them tear up some more stuff. So the Bastiladons, we've seen them. We're going to get to them later on in the last few units of this unit roster. They're kind of the Ankylosaurus kind of style of units. They're kind of the big, bulky, stocky, short units. They're going to be very, very slow, but they are going to be able to deal a massive amount of damage. The feral Stegadon, you've seen the Stegadons before. They're amazing. And then Carnosaurs is obviously going to be your T-Rex style unit, and they're going to cause some damage for sure. But again, they will get enraged a lot easier than other units and will kind of go a little bit crazy. The last 4 units are all missile monsters. We have a Bastiladon with a Revivification Crystal, we have a Bastiladon with the Solar Engine, a Stegadon with a giant crossbow, and an Ancient Stegadon with giant blowpipes. So, the Bastiladon with the Revivification Crystal is exactly what it sounds like. So you can have this giant Bastiladon, and it's going to be able to come into the battlefield and use its crystal to revive units. Super, super awesome, really, really unique kind of unit that I'm really looking forward to seeing, simply because much like you don't really have any other units that can revive stuff bar the vampire counts. So this is kind of like a vampire count unit in that they can come in and they can really turn the tide of battle because they're going to be able to revive those units around you. Now, to what extent or whatever, don't really know. We'll see that in later things. But your next missile monster, Bastiladon with the Solar Engine, this is going to be your main, or at least your biggest artillery unit. The Solar Engine, you've seen pictures of it. There's going to be one up there right now. It absorbs sunlight and then shoots it. It's kind of like the Luminary, that the Empire unit has. But this is going to be a little different, and you can use that to obviously target anyone. How many times, reload, etc. We don't have those kinds of stats, but it will be really, really cool to see. And my hopes is that they don't just take the same animations and the same exact beam and just slap it on the Bastiladon, because I could see it happening, but maybe it won't. You have a Stegadon with a giant crossbow. So this is kind of like the bolt thrower that the dwarves had. Obviously, it's more mobile than the other ones are going to be. Really excited to see what that looks like. And then last but not least, your Ancient Stegadon with giant blowpipes. It's exactly what it sounds. You have your blowpipes that are, I'm assuming, going to launch like either a ton of them at once. I don't really remember him talking about this unit, but the giant blowpipes should be really, really cool to see. It might look like a giant organ gun for all we know, and shoot out those darts. And that's it, guys. Now, of course, things are subject to change. They could be adding more later, they could not be, but just all of these units in general, I'm really liking the direction it's going. They said they wanted to create a lot of variances, just so there could be a ton of different kinds of dino units on the battlefield at once. And I really, really like that. I really like how they're going all the way with the Lizardmen, and I love that they're focusing on them, because this is a kind of unit that we've never seen before in any Total War game. Call of Warhammer, of course, is Medieval 2 version, but to see these guys with the latest graphics, with all of the things that they're able to do now that they haven't been able to do over there in the Medieval 2 realm, just super excited to see all of these units. And at E3, I guarantee you we're gonna get a battle scenario that those guys are gonna get to play. I'm super jealous of anyone that's going to E3 and gets to play it. And of course, they haven't said anything, but they're gonna be at E3 this year, and Warhammer 2, there's gonna be a battle you're gonna get to play. So hopefully, you guys will be able to go. If any of you are, let me know. I'll be rooting for you. But that's it, guys. If you enjoyed the unit roster, if you enjoyed the live stream, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Be on the lookout for any more Warhammer 2 news. This is Havoc, and I'm out of here. Peace!